call Carol Beaumont.
Very much, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise and speak on the second reading of the Members of Parliament Remuneration and Services Bill. Now, obviously a number of people have referred to the work of the Select Committee on this bill and the way that the committee worked together. I too would also like to acknowledge the chair of that Select Committee, the Honourable Ruth Dyson, who is, I think, well known as an extremely good chair. The Select Committee received and considered 18 submissions from interested groups and individuals and heard 7 submissions. And then the bill, as we are now debating, is of course strengthened by the submissions and contributions of those people. Now, this bill seeks to establish a new framework for setting entitlements for members of Parliament. It is a bill that has 4 main parts to it and considers a range of elements. Part 1 is just the preliminary provisions. We then go through from there into salaries and allowances of members of Parliament. Now, this is, just to be crystal clear, this is not what members of Parliament are getting. This is about the how these matters are set. Part 3 around services and Part 4 around entitlements of former members and miscellaneous matters. So I think one of the important factors is to note that this bill, in seeking to set up that new framework, is implementing, subject to some modifications, most of the recommendations of the Law Commission's report, review of the Civil List Act 1979, Members of Parliament and Ministers. And essentially, the bill is recommending that the Remuneration Authority should determine accommodation services to members, travel services to members' families, and resolution of issues about these services and the ongoing travel entitlements of former members. Those are currently determined by the Speaker of the House of Representatives or the Minister responsible for ministerial services. Now, the important point here is moving those things to the Remuneration Authority is part of a process of really increasing the transparency and clarity and also, I guess, managing the competing interests of ensuring that members of Parliament are properly supported in carrying out their functions, but also maintaining confidence in the integrity of Parliament. And that balance is really important. All of us in this chamber will know that members of Parliament are not universally well regarded by the public, and that many consider that we have many flaws and are probably overpaid for not doing a job well. Now, we know that members of Parliament generally, and I would say this across the House, enter this place for the right reasons, wanting to make a difference, wanting to represent New Zealanders, wanting to help change things and scrutinise things in the right manner. And clearly members of Parliament need to be adequately resourced to do that job, to have the services that they need to be able to do that work. And as the Honourable Ruth Dyson outlined when she was talking about travel provisions, the fact of the matter is it isn't just about coming from your hometown and coming to this place in Wellington and being here in the debating chamber and then going back. Doing the job properly requires the ability of members of Parliament to travel to where New Zealanders are and to fulfil their responsibilities in terms of portfolio responsibilities. For example, and the Honourable Ruth Dyson was talking about her commitment, I think it was, to grey power, and then finding out in how many locations around New Zealand they were. Likewise, and I'm sure others could identify examples, the ability to do the job is the ability to talk to relevant people wherever they are in New Zealand. And in my own case, I've been talking to budget services up and down New Zealand about what they are seeing New Zealanders experiencing, the difficulties that they're having, the level of debt that they are carrying. And it is important to look at that from the point of view of different places within this country. So it is a part of doing the job to be able to do that. It's certainly not a perk. So I just again want to emphasise, though, this bill is about how these matters are sorted and set rather than the what. And 2 things in particular I do want to comment on, as I've said, about increasing the transparency and clarity of the requirements for reporting members and former members' entitlement to travel and accommodation services and of the provision of members' superannuation. We must be transparent. We must be clear about what those things are and willing and able to confidently assert those to the public, and for the public to see that they have been set in a reasonable and independent manner, independent from ourselves. The other matter I wanted to particularly identify was the support for members with physical or sensory impairments. And I think this is a really positive step forward for this Parliament. The fact that in doing this we are providing entitlements to services to be determined in a way that takes into account the particular requirements of members with physical or sensory impairments. Now, I want to acknowledge at this point the Green MP Mojo Mathers for her role in ensuring that these matters have really become seen as important and that they require dealing with, and this bill is part of that. We need to ensure that this House is truly representative, that any Member of Parliament who is here has the right support and ability to do their job in representing New Zealanders, and I think that it is a very positive thing indeed that the provisions have been made within this bill. I just would also note, and I think this was done in a reasonably cross-party manner as well, separate from this bill, but just to comment that recently work was done around the needs of members of Parliament with family responsibilities, and recently saw an article about Holly Walker and her baby, and just I guess while I'm talking about Holly, congratulate her for that, and acknowledge that she is getting leave to look after her new baby, which I think is a very positive thing indeed. We want to ensure the baby frequents cafes at such a young age too. But it is positive that we can ensure that this place is truly representative and that people can come into Parliament and have their families still do their job is a positive thing, and one that should be acknowledged. As I said also, that members of Parliament with physical or sensory impairments, as is provided for in this bill, are able to come to this House and do their job. So I think that we've sought, and the Select Committee worked hard on this, I understand, to ensure that the bill does achieve that appropriate balance between the interests of ensuring that members do get properly supported in carrying out their roles and functions, and maintaining confidence of Parliament on the other hand. And by moving many of the matters to the Remuneration Authority, which is independent from members of Parliament, rather than matters being determined primarily by the Speaker of the House of Representatives or the Minister responsible for ministerial services, I do believe that that has improved that. And with that, I would like to commend this bill to the House.
I call Dr. Yang.